Hello everyone, this is Linda Asimole Ella of The Living Woman. The Living Woman focuses on the woman's personal growth and fulfillment of her purpose as a way of building homes, marriages, families, and a society that positively nourishes and positively influences the future generations. And that is why today we were looking at the topic watching out for our children, our kids, on the issue of sexual molestation. It is a very, very serious topic that I want to talk about today. And so, because of our position in the life of women, training women, and our concern for marriage, families, and homes, the issue of sexual molestation and sexual violence, particularly against children and of course women too, is of grave importance, grave concern to the living woman. Just to give you an idea of what it is we are talking about. As we speak, babies, women, girls, men are being raped. 2 months old gets raped, 8 years old, 12 years old, 5 years old, 75-year-old raping a 4-year-old. Like there are all kinds of things happening out there. So like a WhatsApp post I came across stated, the issue is not dressing, location, age, attitude, appearance. These are not the issues. A rapist is a rapist. Somebody who wants to rape would rape irrespective of the conditions in the dress, in the location, in the age, in the appearance of a female or of a male. So the problem lies with the rapist. In this time together, I want to look at practical ways we as mothers, as women, as parents, both father and mother, we need to be watching out for our children in regarding sexual molestation. So we can begin by looking at molestation as also being sexual abuse. Child molestation is child abuse. So while preparing for this session, I came across a write-up on child molestation, which was going around on WhatsApp. So you might have come across that write-up, or you might still come across it. So just for me to acknowledge that some of the materials I'll be sharing on this platform will come from that write-up. I found it very useful, and of course my input to and other experiences from other people. So we know that this issue of child molestation may seem far, but sometimes it can be very close to. You have seen, or you may realize that child molestation has to do with any kind of indecent sexual activities between an adult and a child. So sexual abuse is any form of indecent activity between an adult and a child. So molestation itself, which is also child abuse, takes different forms. The context of molestation and sexual abuse that I want to talk about in this presentation has to do particularly with children. So with children, it takes various forms. It could be an indecent touching, fingering, fondling. The adult could expose his or her genital to the child, or make the child to watch pornography, or speak explicitly about sexual issues with a child. And this also means, so there are various ways this could exhibit itself. This also means that we need to be careful what the children are seeing, what they hear, what they watch. Even cartoons need to be looked at to be sure that they are not sexually oriented. I once came across a cartoon for children where in one of the scenes, they coupled up different animals, and they made it, they coupled male and female animals of different animals doing the sexual act to each other. So, and that was supposed to be a cartoon for children, but here it was a purely sexual play out being shown to children. So the issues we are talking about are indeed very serious. Let's look at who could be a molester, a child abuser. It could be anybody. It just could be anybody. We have come to realize that up to 95% of the people who abuse children are people who are known to the children. It could be somebody close to the child, somebody close to the family. Usually it's somebody known to the child most of the time. Of course, strangers too. But so not just only strangers, they are even mostly people like caregivers, daddy's friend, mommy's friend, teachers, family drivers, maids in the house, relatives in the house, uncles and aunties in the house, pastors, confidants, choir master, grandfather in the house, stepmother, stepfathers, nieces, nephews, uncles, cousins, classmates, lesson teachers, neighbors, co-tenants, family members, like people who are so close. So this child sexual abuse can be caused by various things. It could be parents not paying enough attention to their children to know what's happening in the life of their children. And so the sexual molestation goes on and on and on. Because, for example, how can you be a parent in the house and your child is being abused for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years, for 4 good years, and you have no idea? So it could also be due to absentee parenthood. The parent is absent. So we're talking about causes of child sexual abuse. So the parent might not be observant enough to know what is happening with the child. When the child the moods are changing or is more quiet than other times. Or when the children or the kids are not informed, it can be a cause of sexual abuse. What you watch with your kids is also very important. Do you expose them to things that are not of their level at this time? Indecent dressing by children could also expose them to sexual abuse. So where can this sexual abuse happen? It could be anywhere, right under your roof, in the school, in the class, in the school toilet, at parties, abandoned places, in the rooms of your children, in your very own room, in your very own house. So these things can happen. It takes somebody who wants to abuse a child. 5 minutes is so much. It's enough time to spoil the life of that child. And we also need to pay attention to when our children are out there or even right there in the house. How do these pedophiles are people who abuse children. How do they get to abuse these children? There are different ways. The child might be groomed in that direction, be taught, be it verbally or in action, that this is what the direction the pedophile is taking the child. It could be gifts. It could be financial baits. You give the child money so that the child will now like you. Uncle is giving me money, auntie is giving me money. It could be just over familiarity with the child, playing with the child all the time, buying sweets and all that. So usually the pedophile tries to make an emotional connection with the child, and sometimes with the family, so that when the sexual abuse is about to happen or happens, the child is somehow more accepting of it, would find it more difficult to speak out. So he or she, as the pedophile, tries to gain the trust of the minor. So we need to also be able to know who a possible abuser can be. Some traits they exhibit, and these are traits too that we need to explain to our children. Let them have an idea of when a person, a situation, a place could be a threat to them. So as much as possible, such abusers would always want to be with your child, or the child will always want to be with that person. Don't just leave it at that. Find out why. Or the child feels, it could be the other way around. The child might be feeling uncomfortable whenever he or she sees that abuser. You even a little baby that does not want to stay with a stranger or a relative, don't take it lightly. There might be something happening. If a child refuses a person, please respect that, because you may not know what else is happening, which of course you need to find out if there is anything else. And easily and conveniently, they try to take care of your children while you are away. And of course, those are the moments when the predator does what he or she wants to do. So if the child is rejecting that person, please pay attention to what the child is saying. So sexual abuse can happen among siblings. So for an example, I have a son and a daughter. From time to time, I sit them down and we talk about these things. But I realize that the first people I need to guard each of them against is against one another. In fact, against each other. That's between two people. Against each other. And so, I let the girl know that the boy cannot touch her indecently, neither can she touch him indecently. So we talk about even they themselves. Because you could be thinking that neighbors, others are the ones who might do the abuse, whereas you find your own twin kids, maybe male or female, having sex with each other. So it's to pay attention to the children themselves. Make sure that they are not even perpetrators to each other. And then we talk about other people too, especially close family members, unfortunately. So we can't be careless with the lives of these kids, because their minds are very innocent, and we must not allow them to be exposed to people who will pollute their minds or destroy their lives. For example, a perpetrator might say to a child, might try to threaten a child, and what are the things, like might tell the child, I will kill you if you tell mommy and daddy. I will kill mommy and daddy if you tell them. I will kill you. I will beat you. I will beat your mommy. Your mommy will blame you. Your mommy will hate you for what you have done. Your daddy and mommy will die. Or he or she could even make the child cut himself or leak blood and say that it's a blood covenant between us, and it's going to be our secret. We're not going to tell anybody. The day you tell somebody, that day you're going to die. And of course the child might be afraid. So it's even to let your children know that these are the kind of threats you might receive, but trust me, no, it doesn't work that way. Rather, you have 3 actions to teach the children. Rather, as a child, you can take these 3 actions. shout, scream, run, report. So this is called the SRR action. The SRR action is shout, scream, run, and report. So when the children know that they can do this, they should not be afraid of threats. They will certainly do the SRR action. And there are possible signs to know that your child has been abused. The child might become isolated, might become aggressive, might become anxious, fearful. And if it's so bad and maybe the sexual molestation has already taken place, there may be difficulty in walking, then sudden drop in academic performance, poor social interaction, and so much more. So, as parents, we can't always be harsh and aggressive as we are sometimes. We really, really need to be attentive, obedient, listen, watch these kids, and be very, very, very observant indeed. So that might be a clue to something. And of course, all this sexual abuse exposes children to sexually transmitted diseases. So little tips that we could use could include teaching our children to respect other people's privacy. When they are coming into your room as a parent, let them knock and seek permission before they come into the room. And we need to avoid baiting them together. Even if they are of the same sex, the same gender, we need to avoid baiting them together. Separate rooms are best for them. Room for the boy, room for the girl. So we really want to also be aware that the effect of sexual abuse is so much. The abused child can in turn become an abuser in the future because he or she has now gotten used to these habits, has tasted the pleasure, but at the same time it becomes a way of feeling recognized, of feeling loved by others, or of getting attention from the people they want to get attention from. Other effects of child sexual abuse is depression, suicidal thoughts, withdrawal, of course, stigma, guilt, lifetime psychological traumas, and certainly living with sexually transmitted diseases. So at this point, we want to particularly talk about the boy child. The boy child. And why so? Because of course we admit that most of the sexual abuse that happens is carried out by males, by a boy, by a man, by father. Yeah. So we want to pay special attention to the boys. And that also means changing the way the boys are being groomed and brought up within the home. It's no longer let boys be boys. No, we need to groom them to be human beings who recognize and respect females equally. We who are females, we who are also trying to find ourselves in society, we know what we get, the attitudes we get sometimes when you're out there and a man just speaks to you and wants to make you feel that you are just a woman. When I see such, I smile because the problem is not with you being a woman, it's with him, his insecurity with himself and lack of acceptance of himself and others. So the issue is with the person. So we need to be grooming boys who are not just looking down on females and thinking they're everything. At the same time, we are not saying that we want to groom boys who become timid and feel oppressed and cannot express themselves. No. Like the girl child, he needs to be confident about himself and about his worth. We want to be sure that we are molding future women and men who can define themselves and have the confidence to pursue their own dreams, have their own mind, and define their own identity. So, you and I can help the girl child, the boy child cultivate a true self-image and trust that that child, that adolescent has divine intelligence within them to guide her, to guide him. So your role is to direct, guide, instruct, assist, support, encourage, affirm, listen, protect, advise, exemplify. So let's avoid excessive criticism of our boys or putting them down or physically abusing and violating them in the name of discipline. Discipline has its place, but we need to be careful about physically abusing our children. And when we find ourselves being excessively critical, like you always point out when the child does things wrongly. So what about those moments when the boy child or the girl child does things rightly? Do you remember to appreciate them, to congratulate them, to reward them, just to appreciate the fact that they've put in their best? So it's a very serious topic because we want to have a future generation that is not battered, that is not crushed, that is not broken. There are so many broken people among us already. So we have a healing process to do with our own self and to ensure that we don't pass those damaging experiences to our boy child or to our girl child. So let us pay more attention to our male children and not just leave them out. Sometimes we pay so much attention to the girl, we're teaching her do this, do that. The boys need to be taught responsibility. And so chores are not left to the girl child alone, because there are homes today where it looks like the male figure in the house can just walk away and go be wherever he wants to be and come back whenever he wants to come back, not minding what is happening in the house. The children have eaten, and do they have clothes to wear? Have their school fees been paid? There are so many homes today that are struggling with. There are so many women today that are struggling with those issues. It all boils back to how these people were raised. So the boys can't be exempted from the happenings in the home, the concerns, the domestic concerns, the domestic chores. He is not exempted from them in any way. Else, you may likely be breeding a rapist. Somebody who just he goes out, leave the house at any time, goes to play football, roam the street, and then come back home when he's hungry. You are likely breeding a rapist or a person who will be violent in the future. So again, let our male children do the cooking, the washing, the cleaning, the taking care of their younger ones, bathing themselves well, maybe not bathing others, but really taking care of their younger ones, teach them respect for their sisters and to be empathetic towards their sisters, give our children sexual education proportional to their age. Because you come and tell me, no, don't tell your 5-year-old about rape. But then there are 5-year-olds out there who are being raped. You might even have a 3-year-old right in the house who is being raped, and yes, you don't want them to hear about these things. So child molestation is real, and it is very painful when it happens right in your house. So with this, we just want to help ourselves to be aware of these issues and to make sure that we are paying attention to our children. We are not destroying their lives through negligence, but indeed we are letting them be children, letting them play, letting them experience good memories of their childhood that they will tomorrow be proud to speak about. So thank you for this time. We will continue talking about different issues that relates to family life, that relates to the woman, that makes our family and our marriages better. So I encourage you to like, to share, and to subscribe on this channel. Check right there down. You can make your comments, you can subscribe, and we'll be glad to reach out to you as many times as we can. The Living Woman, reaching for your greatness.